His name was Lucas. He wasn't Daniel's best friend exactly, but he was always around. The kind of presence that slowly becomes furniture in your life. Familiar, comfortable, unremarkable. He helped us move into our first apartment. He brought beer to every barbecue. He sent memes to our group chat, helped Daniel with yard work, remembered our anniversary even when my own husband sometimes forgot. For years, I thought nothing of him, until I started thinking of him too often. It didn't happen overnight. There was no lightning moment, no cinematic stare across a room, just slow erosion, words that went a little too deep, texts that lingered too long on the screen, looks that felt like they touched more than just skin. The shift happened quietly. Maybe it was the night Daniel left early from game night, and Lucas and I sat on opposite sides of the couch with the lights low, talking about music, then childhood, then fear. I don't remember who leaned in first. Maybe neither of us did. Maybe the space just collapsed. The first time we kissed, I didn't think about Daniel. Not really. I thought about how long it had been since someone looked at me like that. Like I was more than someone's wife, someone's plan, someone's, when are you ovulating? I thought about the way Lucas didn't hesitate when I moved closer. The way his hand found my waist like he'd been waiting to touch me for months. It wasn't slow or romantic or soft. It was a spark catching dry leaves, quiet at first, then too fast to stop. We didn't sleep together that night, but the decision had already been made. I went home and showered for half an hour, scalding hot, trying to feel clean and not understanding why I didn't feel dirty. I lay next to Daniel, listening to him breathe, and stared at the ceiling until the sun came up. I told myself it would end there. It didn't. The second time happened 2 weeks later. I was supposed to meet friends for dinner. I canceled. Lucas texted, "You around?" I said yes before thinking. He came over. We didn't talk much. He kissed me in the hallway before I could set down my keys. My back hit the wall. His hands were already under my sweater, and I let him. I didn't stop him. Because in that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the ring on my finger, not the man who loved me. Just the heat rising through my body and the way Lucas whispered my name like it was a secret only he got to say. After, I sat on the edge of the bed and watched him get dressed. He didn't ask questions. I didn't offer any. It was easier that way. When I came home, Daniel was watching TV with a blanket over his lap. He smiled, reached for me, asked how dinner was. I said, fine. I kissed him, still tasting Lucas in my mouth, and he never noticed. That was the part that hurt most. Not the guilt, but how easily I could pretend. It became a pattern, once every few weeks at first. Then more. Texts during the day. Late-night calls when Daniel was asleep. Little moments at birthday parties, grocery stores. That time Lucas picked me up because my car battery died and we ended up parked behind the gym, breathing hard in the dark, laughing like what we were doing didn't matter. I told myself lies that sounded like logic, that I wasn't happy, that Daniel didn't make me feel like a woman anymore, that we'd been trying to have a baby for 2 years and he didn't see how broken I was inside, that Lucas made me feel whole, that I deserved something just for me. I kept my phone on silent, turned off notifications, changed Lucas's name in my contacts, told Daniel I was working late or running errands or meeting friends I hadn't seen in months. He never pushed, never accused, because he trusted me. I used that. One night, Daniel looked at me across the kitchen and said, "You seem different lately." I said I was tired. He nodded, kissed my forehead, and said, "I just miss you." And I smiled, because what else could I do? I told myself I wasn't hurting him, that what he didn't know wouldn't undo us. that this was temporary, that I'd stop. But I didn't. Because it was never just about Lucas. It was about everything I'd stopped feeling, and the one thing I couldn't stop craving. When you're hiding something from someone who loves you start to live in details. You become hyper aware of everything. How long you take in the shower, the way your voice sounds when you answer a message, whether you lock your phone out of habit or fear. I started timing my errands, coordinating my lies, deleting messages before I even read them so I wouldn't accidentally smile too long at something Lucas sent. I wasn't nervous. I was meticulous. But Daniel noticed. Not in accusations or confrontations, just in the way his eyes held mine a little longer after a simple question, like he was waiting for a part of the answer I didn't say. He never checked my phone, never followed me, never raised his voice. He just watched. Not obsessively, not angrily. Just enough to make me feel in my quietest moments like I was made of glass. I started being careful with how I walked into a room. If I'd just seen Lucas, I made sure my body language stayed lazy, calm, unlit. I made sure my hair wasn't too perfect, that my lips weren't too flushed, that I didn't come home glowing in ways I couldn't explain. But there were always little things I forgot. Like the way my fingertips twitched when a text came in. How I tilted the phone just slightly away when I answered. The time Daniel called while I was with Lucas and I let it ring twice before answering. Voice too breathy, too smooth. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Yeah, just shopping." "What's that noise?" "Wind," I said. I was in Lucas's car. I cracked the window, made sure it blew loud enough to cover the lie. He didn't push, but I could hear the shift in his breathing before he said goodbye. I told myself he didn't know, that he was being dramatic, but the truth was, he didn't need evidence. He felt it in his gut, and I was feeding him doubt one spoonful at a time. I started snapping at him more. It's strange how lying makes you defensive, like you're trying to punish them for suspecting something that's true. He'd ask harmless questions, and I'd twist them into attacks. "Who are you texting just now?" Would become, "Why are you always watching me?" "You've been distant lately." Turned into, "Do you even know how hard I'm trying?" I weaponized guilt. I used his quietness against him. Told him he was insecure. Told him to trust me. Told him I was tired of being treated like I was doing something wrong when all I wanted was peace. And he believed me. At least he acted like he did. He stopped asking, but his silence got heavier. He stopped reaching for me in bed. Stopped making little jokes in the morning when I brushed my teeth with one eye open. Stopped saying "I love you" when I left the house. And I told myself that meant the distance was his fault, that I wouldn't be slipping away if he just fought for me harder. But even I didn't believe that anymore. The worst moment was stupidly small. I came home late from meeting a friend and found him sitting on the couch in the dark, TV on mute. He didn't look angry, just quiet. Tired. He looked at me and said, "Hey." That's all. I kissed his head, said, "Sorry, she needed to talk." Went into the kitchen, opened the fridge, closed it again without taking anything out. From behind me, he said, "You smell different." I paused. "I use that new body wash." He didn't say anything else. I remember standing there with my hand on the fridge door thinking, he knows. Maybe not the whole story. Maybe not every detail. But he knows. And still I didn't stop. I couldn't. Because by then, Lucas wasn't the secret. He was the escape from a version of myself I couldn't bear to come home to. And Daniel, no matter how kind, no matter how real, was the mirror I didn't want to look into anymore. It was a Wednesday. I remember because it was one of those midweek evenings when everything's quiet and slow, when no one expects drama. Dinner had been leftovers. We sat on the couch with some crime show humming in the background. I was scrolling my phone, answering something Lucas had sent. Something simple, not even flirty. Just familiar. I was half smiling when Daniel said my name. Just that. No tone. Just Michelle. I looked up. He didn't blink, didn't fidget. He wasn't holding his phone like he'd found something, wasn't raising his voice like he was about to accuse me of anything. He just looked like a man trying very hard to stay still inside a world that wouldn't stop moving. Is there something you want to tell me? My fingers froze around my phone. I felt my throat close up, like my body wanted to answer for me, but I forced my mouth to smile. What do you mean? He looked at me longer than he ever had, like he was memorizing who I'd become. I mean, he said, you've been distant. And different. And I've asked myself 100 times if it was in my head. If maybe I was just overthinking things, being insecure, ruining something that wasn't broken. I didn't say anything. I didn't nod. I didn't frown. I just waited. Because deep down, I knew the moment had finally arrived. The one where pretending would no longer save me. I thought it was work, he said, quieter now, like he was narrating a dream. Then I thought maybe you were just sad. I even thought maybe I'd done something, that you were mad at me and didn't know how to say it, but it wasn't that. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. It's Lucas, isn't it? There was no anger in his voice, just quiet devastation. And I didn't deny it. I didn't cry or gasp or throw out a desperate string of explanations. I just sat there, phone still in my hand, frozen in the exact position I'd been caught in. And I knew that my silence was all the proof he'd ever needed. He laughed once, sharp, not cruel. You know what the worst part is? He said. That I convinced myself I was imagining it. That every time I saw something, the way you smiled at your phone, the nights you showered as soon as you got home, the way you never left your screen facing up anymore, I told myself I was paranoid. I didn't mean. But you let me believe that. He cut in, voice still low, eyes still on the floor. You let me think I was crazy, that I was needy, that I didn't trust you enough. I wanted to say something, anything. But what was there left? I had spent a year eroding his confidence, bending his instincts against him. And now he was staring at the wreckage, realizing it had been real the entire time. I tried so hard to believe you, he said, because I wanted to, because the alternative, the truth, would have broken me. And now I don't know which part hurts more, that you lied, or that I let you lie so easily. Silence. The kind that fills your ears like static, the kind that makes you forget what normal air feels like. He stood, walked to the kitchen, poured himself a glass of water with hands that shook just enough to make my stomach twist. He didn't yell, didn't throw things. He just stood there, sipping water like it might drown the truth that wouldn't leave his throat. I loved you, he said. I really, truly loved you. And you made me feel like I was the one breaking us, when it was you all along. I walked toward him, stopped, said quietly, I didn't want to hurt you. You didn't stop either, he said. He looked up at me then. The sadness in his face wasn't explosive. It was steady, deep, like someone finally accepting that the person they trusted most had left them long ago, but kept wearing their face. He didn't sleep in our bed that night, just closed the door behind him and took the guest room. I didn't follow. I just sat on the living room floor until the sun started to rise. And for the first time in over a year, I didn't have anything left to hide behind. He didn't leave, at least not that night. Not the next day either. I think part of me expected him to pack a bag, slam a door, curse my name, cry on the floor. But Daniel didn't give me that kind of closure. He gave me silence. Measured, patient, unforgiving silence. And somehow, that was worse. We still lived in the same house, moved through the same hallways, brushed teeth in shifts, said good morning and I'm heading out like we were still playing a role in someone else's marriage. But the warmth was gone. Not burned, frozen. Every small routine became hollow. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He just stopped showing up emotionally. And I understood what that meant. He was already gone. His body hadn't caught up yet. I stopped seeing Lucas. Completely. No slow goodbye. Just off. I deleted his number, archived the messages, stared at his name in my mind for hours and forced it out like a fever. Because whatever I thought I felt for him disappeared the moment Daniel looked me in the face and told me I made him question his own reality. Lucas never reached out. He didn't have to. He knew it was done. What lingered wasn't desire. It was shame. Not even for the affair itself. But for how long I let Daniel feel like a fool. For how many times I'd softened my voice and tilted my head and said, "You're imagining things," knowing he wasn't. For how often I let him love me while I loved myself too little to stop. One night, I found him sitting on the back porch, staring into the yard where the grass needed mowing. He looked older somehow, even though it had only been a few weeks. I sat beside him. He didn't move. I said, "You don't have to forgive me." He said, "Good, because I don't." And that was the most honest thing we'd said to each other in months. But he stayed. Not out of mercy. Not out of hope. Maybe out of inertia. Maybe because moving out felt like giving it all too much weight. Or maybe because he wanted me to feel what he felt. Living in the wreckage, day by day, with the person who pulled the match from the box. We started sleeping in separate rooms, ate separately, told friends we were figuring things out, though I think most of them already knew. I stopped checking his expression every time I walked into a room, because I already knew what was behind it. Nothing. He didn't love me anymore, and that emptiness scared me more than any screaming match ever could. He told me once, weeks later, in a rare moment of eye contact, "I don't think I'll ever fully trust my instincts again. Not because of what you did, but because of what you convinced me I was." I said, "I know." Because I did. I'd hollowed him out slowly, gutted his ability to believe his own gut. Not just through the affair, but through every soft dismissal, every fake reassurance, every look I gave him that said, "You're overreacting." When deep down, I knew he wasn't reacting enough. We didn't fight. We didn't try therapy. We didn't talk about starting over. There was no fire left to burn, just the long gray quiet of two people pretending the damage could be repainted instead of torn down. When he eventually packed his things, it was methodical. He folded clothes, labeled boxes, didn't take the framed photos, didn't ask for anything back. He stood in the doorway, keys in hand, and said, "I hope you figure out who you are." I said nothing, because I didn't know. And I still don't. But I know what I did. And I know what I took from him.